So in terms of principle 9, which is the optimal or correct use of power, we're still going to work with the questions to be asked, as well as give a little bit of sum up in breaking this down to known concepts and tools. So how do we generate sales and create markets that provide exchange of goods and services within the concepts of the higher awareness setup to further the implementation of the new sciences, industries, services, and concepts of our higher awareness humanity ready to interact directly with the higher order energies of our system, from the organic to the holographic energetic dynamics of our world? And aside from correct commitment and correct use of energy and correct use of power, these are technically the density 3 principles. I'll talk about that other places as well. So we're here saying that's kind of what applies to our template level, where we remember principle 1, 2, and 3 are kind of the organic outer domain level. The middle domain is principle 4, 5, and 6, and the inner domains are principle 7, 8, and 9. And when we talk about the questions to be asked, we must remember again, from which level are we working? Are we working within principle 1, 2, and 3, the highest good of the many, balancing principle, and law of participation? Because then these questions will be within these concepts, will be within these dynamics, the holographic energetic dynamics of these principles on that level, as well as when we work with the middle domain or a heart field, vibrational field, then this will apply to how we work with principle 4, 5, and 6. That is the law of reciprocity, the inner knowing, the correct knowledge base, as well as the correct partnerships. Whereas if we work from principle 7, 8, and 9, that's where we work with commitment and use of energy and power. So again, we are having 3 levels here. Why does power apply to a template level? That's a good question, right? But that's because when we really begin to use our consciousness potentials, we are becoming, not only have we cleared the vibrational field, so we vibrate with the holographic network of our reality and by that are influencing it. But once we reach the radiation field, which goes through principles 7, 8, and 9, what we focus on will then really give energy. We will then really transform it, and we can transmute it using the radiation energy. So that's where we suddenly get into what we could say a very powerful energy system that is now not only working on holographic code systems of the biofield, but also able to vibrate these increational processes using the heart field for the highest good of the many within the correct understanding of the middle domain dynamics, as well as now using the radiation energies of the inner domains that are tied to the 5th cycle races and what we are to learn as 5th cycle civilization. The 4th cycle civilization were to learn to administer the middle domain 4, 5, principle 4, 5, and 6. And the outer domain is where you either begin, where you have the dense energy so you don't make a mess of things, or that's where you end when you need to clear up things, where you need to go into the basic level of highest good of the many. That is not for you as a selfish being, but you are working as in a unity where you become the first of many. Everything you are and whatever you do, you're accountable for that, to either choose the path of the left or the right hand, so to speak, where you either do progression or you do service to self. And you do it for the highest good of the many, and you don't do it for selfish purposes. That's the basic choice that most humans have to do with principle 1. And principle 2 is then where you learn to balance these oppositions in the understanding of that everything that is no longer desired can be transformed and upgraded into progression dynamics, from where we can elevate ourselves into understand that we actually have a say, that we can implicate reality by the law of participation, and what we choose to be part of there, using discernment as a mental feature, which used to be the original versions of the 3 lower fields, right? That we exist for the highest good of the many to transform this reality field out of the timeline event energies, or to let go of everything that's no longer of use for the lineages that we are part of. And we balance that between being individuals and others and reality via principle 2. And we understand that everything we are influences everything around us, and that we participate with who and what we are in our influencing capacities as it influences us as well, as a kind of unification between principle 1 and 2, the law of participation, should they guide us to be part of something where we actually give energy because it's worthy of our energy. And from that, go into the middle domain where we begin to work with our heart field, activating that to the correct levels of the law of reciprocity, the inner teacher, as well as the correct partnerships, where we really understand how we can contribute to everything there is, from the correct level of vibration, the correct level of kindness, and the correct level of non-distortedness, which is being called being harmless. So it's nothing to do with just being empathic or being compassionate. That technically goes with the alteration of principle 1. Compassion goes with alteration of principle 1, going into principle 2, where we truly learn what compassion really is, to upgrade our law, by the law of participation, upgrade our energy system into a unity system where we can then jump into principle 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so that's, put that in mind as well when we talk about, for instance, if you're working within principle 1, well, then of course these 3 questions must be looked within the principle 1. When you work within principle 2, these questions must be contemplated upon within principle 2, as well as principle 3, principle 4, and onward and so forth. So these questions, when you are working with one of the principles, and if you say, I don't know which principle I'm working with, well, then ask the question, which principle am I working within? What do I still need to learn? Where do I still need to activate and clean to integrate that principle? Which one is it? And then see what reality plays out for you. It will show you where you're working, either people coming your way, or by situations, or by thought processes, and be aware of the alluring energetic parasites that might want you to believe that you're working on so much higher level, and in that actually pumping you up, inflating you with all sorts of ideas of how good and brilliant you are, when the fact is that you're still roaming around in principle 1, because the more brilliant and fantastic you think you are, the more you are actually on the path of the left hand that is so eager to prove their self-worth and not really being humble. And humble does not mean to be this humble servant in a worn-out robe with sandals, but it means to be observant of how self, others, and reality are always interacting, and what's the highest good of the many of everything that we are doing, and how does our energy affect others, how does our energy affect reality, and what's the goal of this affectedness? What do we want to achieve with the way that we are administering our energy? So we're always looking ourselves into relative reality dynamics, always look ourselves as part of a unity field, and always look at ourselves as part of a team, that if everybody was doing what you were doing or I am doing, well, then how would the world actually look? So we are constantly testing ourselves into that understanding of, I can always be better, I can always progress. Was this the right reaction? Was this the right approach? Should I have done this differently? Could I have done this differently? And what am I to learn from this experience? And how do I choose to do it differently next time, by using, for instance, visualization, or contemplate upon how you could do it differently and where you want to go with that differently, not as a reaction out of shame and blame, but as a reaction out of choosing the highest purity rates, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate. And these are the transition sciences that are working with these ideas, including the free material, the Future Human Project courses, as well as the other material I've got out there. So these questions must be asked within their different segment of the principles. So that's the first step. As well as all done in, the question is to be asked is kind of, how is all of this done in the correct system of exchange of energy used for progression and development for all implicated, benefiting the majority of the highest good of the many, and in that following the original developmental programs of the Pillar Project. Because that's what's implied here, that we kind of say, well, this is what we're supposed to do here. I've been talking about that as well. Sorry about that. So this is what we're actually supposed to, this is why we're here, no matter what reality. We could say, well, it would have been so much easier if it was still part of the Pillar Project. Yes, but it's not. So there's no need to mourn the loss of that other than just 5 seconds say, yeah, that sucks. But what are we dealing with here? And again, remember, when we are in our rational, strategic, higher level energies, it's always easier to take the high stand and say, well, this is just how it has to be. And then we get hit by something, and then we're full of residual energies that activates our emotional field in a specific way that stirs up some of the things that we need to clear out. And then we might feel very small, and we might feel like a little child, and we might want to kind of just curl up in our bed and cry a little bit and feel everything is a little bit sad. And that's okay too, as long as you just don't go into a victimization mode full of self-pity, but you say, I just need to release these emotions. I need to, and then go into a healing process where you heal your heart and you heal your organs and you heal the molecular level. You restore yourself. You dry your eyes, you blow your nose, and you rise back up, and you go and do a good cup of tea or something and eat some food. And then you sit down and say, okay, that was okay for me to have this emotional reaction. Then how do I then move forward from here? What's the next step for me to take? And if you have been on a severe counterattack, which I have from time to time, well, I can't do anything at that day. I just have to restore and heal the next day and 2 days after. But once I'm out of that and I feel I am back into a balanced state where I can think clearly, where I can sense things the right way, and the right way is something I know that's the right way for me, where I see things clearly, know what to do with them, know how to clear them. I'm not being full of weird deceptive thoughts or self-depressing thoughts or self-denial thoughts of the 70s or anything, but I'm quite level-headed and calmed in my heart field, and feel compassion is still there. The desire, which is a desire to aspire to do good, the desire that is a desire to aspire to unfold what we could say a better world where people are good people. And I know they are not always good people, but I don't see the negativity first. I kind of see the calmness in this is solvable. This is possible. I just need to figure out the way how to do that, and then operate from that level of clarity, knowing it's a process, knowing it's not about finding the solutions actually, but it's about initiating the process by asking the question, what could the solution be? Because that's the process of how I progress my energy system, to always ask, what's the solution? How do I fix this? Not as because it's my responsibility, but because I know I have some knowledge that can come to the surface as I focus on how to actually solve this, how to actually deal with this, how do I progress this, how do I transform this, or how do I find a solution that will lead to what we could say progression dynamics. So these are solutions that are process-based, not solutions that are goal-based. And that's a huge difference when we talk about the questions we must ask ourselves. So in terms of business and creational projects, that's where we take everything we have learned and put it into the base program. And it's not just about creating the perfect product. It's about creating the perfect process of progression. It's about creating what is perfect. It's perfect for us, our energy system and our progression journey with whatever we are to learn. We have ups and downs and merry-go-rounds and hoops and loops and what have you. And nothing is ever just a straight line of progression. It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards, 1 step up, 2 steps down. It has many different types of dynamics that we learn to live with. And we learn to understand that living with the progression energies and living in a system that for a long time has denied these energies to unfold, and being the first of many that puts these wheel back in motion, that puts these systems back online and make them run and do what they're supposed to do because we are doing it. So we are driving that change that initiates the original dynamics of our system. Well, then we participate in the highest good of the many with every little thing that we can do. Every little piece of energy work will have a say in the big scheme of things. It might not change a lot of things, but it's like building a brick road where each and one of us chip in with our version of progression progression, with our version of transformation of energy, with our version of the highest good of the many, because it's not just one way for the optimal outcome of all involved. There are many different ways, and that's the brick road we're building to reinstigate and initiate the original dynamics of the outer domain. So that's also to be taken into consideration. You keep saying, well, Randi, that's so lofty and fluffy, and that's just hot air when we talk about business. Business is base program, it's laws, it is business dynamics, it's earning money, it's paying bills, it's buying merchandise, it's buying services, it's buying goods, it's doing this, it's doing that. And yes, I completely agree. But the question is also that understanding, isn't that old world order concepts and understanding? Is that just to fall back into how business used to be perceived? Could business be perceived in a different way? Can you invent a different way of perceiving business? Could you get rid of these old programs of what business is? And then begin working with some new ideas of what business actually could be. Work with not these are the industries that are possible. Work with what new type of industries can be made. And industries are not necessarily technological machine worlds. Being industrious just means to be creative, to produce something. So what kind of production, measurements, tools, realities, teamworks. Let's invent some new words so we can kind of create some new kind of concepts, and then begin to work from these new concepts of what's possible and what might not be possible now, but be possible later on if we instigate the process that will lead to it to be possible. So that's a process of patience. That's a process of, okay, we're working with the patterns of change. We're working with these dynamics by beginning to think in different ways, begin to work in different ways. And I would recommend here, some of you are very eager to look up what others have come up with, but just remember the law of participation. If you look up what others have come up with, you will buy into these ideas. And you say, well, Randi, you're just doing Coursera courses from Google. Yes, at that point in time, I am buying into their ideas. I'm also buying into it because I put out my business profile on Google, the search engine. So in a way, I am buying in, but at the same time, I'm also making it very clear with the insectoids. This is a Concord. This is me using them as a platform to get out there. But I would find another platform if they in any ways or forms are processing that exchange rate of my work jurisdiction on their platform. If they somehow harm that one, if I discover that they're actually not working to promote it out there now that I'm using the quote unquote, the correct tools, the correct funnels that they have made, if that then turns out that that is not giving the exchange rate of what I invest and is not giving back the exchange rate of what it actually is, well, then I must find another platform. Right? So this is again where the work that we do, the amount of energy we put into the base program, that's what work is, must have an exchange rate that plays back to some kind of progression dynamics that lifts it to a higher level, bearing more energy with it, bearing more progression dynamics with it, bearing the opportunity for more creational projects. So that's all the correct system of exchange of energy and use for progression development for all implicated, benefiting the majority for the highest good of the many, and that following the original development of our system. And that is to generate progression, transformation of the infectious energies of the timeline event, undo the distortion and the inversion, and get us all back on track within the lineages and the original developmental programs of the LPU. So that's as simple as that. So that's where we choose our platforms. That's where we choose our business partners. That's where we choose the products that we are having. And there are many different products, especially in the world today where everything can be done online. And there's a larger focus on services more than on goods, because in a couple of years or so, first and foremost, everybody will more or less produce what they need on their own in whatever version that will be. And those of us who are working within, going a little bit off grid, we will be more and more self-sufficient and should be so. And the production of items and goods will be less because there's simply no resources for it. So we will begin using more recycling, as we're also seeing in the circular economy ideas, not just producing and wasting, but learning how to use the waste as well. So the goods will be less and they will be more recycled, just as it were in the old days where things that were produced were actually produced in a good quality, so they lasted longer. So again, when we talk about then what will keep up the economy running, or the wheels of economy, that will be services, that will be what we call non-tangible services, whether it is consulting or it's cultural dynamics or psychology or it's business ideas or whatever it is. The means of trade will be within what we call mental psychological concepts, in whatever that means, societal structures that goes with innovative paradigms, ideas, thoughts, theories, all of these, what we call non-tangible projects. And that's where most of the sciences will focus as well, especially now that AI and computers and what have you will begin to run the machine world on more tangible levels of reality. And that will set humanity free to work on other levels or completely be absorbed into the transhuman agenda. So it's not just all for good. We must be very mindful of these dynamics. But this, of course, goes with the fifth cycle. That's all about the radiation field. And that goes with the correct use of power, commitment, power, and energy. So this is that understanding that we are having the correct commitment in what we engage in mentally, vibrationally, and biologically. And with that, understand that the developmental programs that our fifth cycle feature, the holographic energetic dynamics, must underline everything that we're doing. And with that, we also look into what will the target group need to transit into this form of new business principles using the existing tools and concepts of marketing, business, supply, and demand. So when we talk about target group, we can say, well, the community we want to work within, the network of people that we want to be associated with, the people that these are our peers. They are also working on the transition dynamics. They are working for a better future. That's part of the correct partnerships. We will find be attracted to these groups that are working differently, whatever that group may be. Sometimes we might align with someone we thought we wouldn't align with, but that would be a loose concord for a period of time, and then we will let that one go. They will have gained something from it. We will have gained something from it. We have continued our joint progression journey. So even though that they might progress into a different type of future, at least they're still progressing, right? So that's again when we look into, okay, where can we create concords? At least with civilizations that are not exploiting any other life form. The 12 choices of living should be fundamental in whatever groups we engage with, including the target group, the quote unquote buyers of our products. They must also be on board with a completely different way of perceiving reality. So how do we do business using the existing system and then add the higher order agreements of trade? And that is kind of when we are in the old world order. That's, for me, that is to look at all of what's going on there and transform as much as we can, create new patterns of change, new patterns of perception, ideas, creational projects, and then work our way out of it. As I talked about with the fourth cycle, literally work our way out of it, do the transition into the fifth, and then begin there working under the higher order progression dynamics, using the progressive energies to create holographic energetic dynamics that will affect eventually the base program in different ways. There is always someone who has to go first, right? The first of many, that's principle one. We go first so that we can instigate the changes. And the more we know of how to do this, the better we will become at working with the patterns of change. And the more we will understand that everything does not always have to be manifested into a product. Sometimes the processes themselves are enough to create changes. So that's also a different way of looking at things, that not everything we do will manifest, but a lot of the things we will do will transform energy. So when we breaking this down to known concepts and tools, then we can say generating an adapted business philosophy. So the idea of exchange of goods and services is to bring value to the consumer or the customer in manifest form as well as energetic. As I just said here, a sale will amplify the human well-being and progress in some way. whether that is actually something they go out and buy, or it is something that they buy a version of the product, but then there is an energetic tail to it that amplifies, that works with it in a different way. When we work within food or health or environment, that's where we really can begin to work with the holographic energetic dynamics behind our product or behind whatever we're selling, whatever service we're selling, whatever development program we're selling, or whatever we are putting out there, where people are interested, engaging in it, and in not just as a curiosity, buying this product thinking that they will get a better life, but actually know what the product is about, actually know what they are buying into, what they are investing in, and what the exchange rate is of that. And the question is, how can we put that out to the ones that are buying it? And that will be part of the free material that we put out there, so everybody knows that who we are, what we stand for, what's our philosophy behind the business model that we are utilizing, what's the concepts and the ideas, and what's the purpose of what we're doing. And I will say that some of the material I will come up later on will have that much more in mind. I already done that years ago with the fourth cycle, but now with the 2025 timeline, then that's where a whole new level of concepts and ideas must be implemented and put in motion, similar to the Extra Systemic Awareness Forum that's also on YouTube, and what's left of the whole Academy YouTube, where I will use that to create podcasts on selected topics within spirituality that needs to be transformed and cleared out, and then put out as an offer to let this go. There's another option, so people can choose willingly to begin their progression journey, or decide, well, that's not for me, and then go some other direction. But it's there as an offer. It's not an obligation. The buying is. So this is again the understanding that a sale will amplify the human well-being and progression in some way. So it will progress in some way, right? And at the same time, bring self-empowerment into business and marketing methods and creation of products to allow the consumer or the customer to make knowledgeable and valid choices, adding to the value of the buy. And that's where, again, we know that when you buy something, you buy into the idea of the product. That's where we must ensure that the idea behind our product or our service is in alignment with the progression energies. It is in alignment with the principles and what we want to manifest. And we are very observant of that what we are suggesting to our consumer or to the customer is that we are literally going in and saying, well, this is an opposition, or not an opposition. It is an opposition to what they are, but it's also an opportunity to progress and to transform. And by using the progression dynamics within their reality, crisis will arise. They will be pushed into asking the right questions to begin the right processes. And here the right processes are to aspire to progression, to transform their energies and who and what they are. And they need to be ready to do that. And for me, that's kind of the stumbling block for quite a lot of my material, where I put that out and say, this is not going to make you happier. This is going to make your life more complicated. And people say, well, why should I buy the product then? But then the mirror back to these people are, you are clearly doing the progression journey or the enlightenment or the awakening because you want to be happy. You want to feel happy. You don't want to feel what you need to clear out. You do not want to feel your karma. You don't want to feel your past life trauma. You don't want to feel anything that's unpleasant. So you choose the products that will bring you quote unquote happiness. But it is with all addiction, because that's an addiction to seeking happiness, is that will eventually also go stale. That will also lose its potentials of happiness, because how much happiness can you actually have before happiness becomes a habit as well? And then it stops feeling happy because the body adjusts to that level of arousal, that level of desire, and then it craves more, and then it craves even more, and then you will run out of what actually brings happiness and solace and peace and equanimity, and then go into dynamics that are more and more heavily desire based into perversion. That's where happiness will go eventually. It will unfortunately flip into perversion, because the desire body will crave more and more and more, and then it will begin to create distortion, and then it loses its balance point. it loses its equanimity, it loses its equilibrium. So it will then shift into the left wing, the left-hand path, where it will begin to think that perversion is the correct type of the way to go to create more desire. And we've seen that in many different ways, where something that was enjoyable suddenly becomes a severe addiction, where things just have to get worse and worse to get the same effect, whatever that may be. So that goes with the seeking of the love and light and the happiness, as we have also seen, especially now where the old world order progression, prohibiting technologies of progression are being put out of play, and that arouses all of the distortion energies, and people that are seeking happiness that were functional within the old spiritual programs of samadhi and bliss and grace and what have you, they will quickly flip into the opposition, because now that blockage that used to be there is no longer functional, because of the programs that used to run this, that would sort people into, if you're a pleasure seeker, you would go into a specific type of program. Since all of this is now breaking down, then that means that the counter of that one will kick in quicker than it used to do. The karma of it will appear quicker than what it used to be. It used to be stopped or prohibited from actually entering into our field. It would not enter into our field in this life, but once we were letting go of the physical form due to a high level energetic parasites that had built up because of the wrongful use of energy, then that would determine where we would be reborn in the next life. So the prohibiting technologies of the old world order were technically blocking us from learning from our mistakes in this life, and we had to pay the price next life. So that's how, and then in next life, we would be wiped not to understand what we were supposed to do. So in a manner, the old world order prohibiting technologies were engineered to create regression. They were engineered to get us stuck in the reincarnation cycles. They were engineered to push us into producing more distortion energies and more perversion. And with that, keep us on the regression spiral from where they could harvest and trade our genetics and not allow us to activate and reconnect to a true energy system. So that's part of the self-empowerment, where we understand that what we're doing here is also to create progression dynamics that will free us of our enslavement. So you can say, can we use business and marketing methods to free us of the enslavement programs? Well, at least we can, whatever we're creating recreational projects, we can create something that transforms energy in whatever level it is. And that's why I suggest food, health, and environment, because these are connected to who and what we are as humans. They are not on a far distance from our own field. Food is all about what we eat. Health is who and what we are on many different levels, going from the biology to the template level. That's health, because the more we work correctly with energy, the better health we will have. And environment is everything that goes with our home, to our surroundings, to the nature we are part of, to the community, whatever variation we can push that into. And with that, always look at the highest good of the many that we are participating in. Instead of, if we, for instance, chose to work with gold, or we chose to work with some kind of metal item or some kind of gadget or some kind of app or something that ties into what we could say factions and realities that are connected to alien groups that do not have the highest good of humanity at heart. So these are some of the things that we also need to take into consideration. There is a little thing about gold that can be actually worked within a transformative way, but I don't think many of you are ready to work with the reality grids in the mineral level and undo the crystallization of the original holographic outer domain energies to restore them back to the original features, where you literally can decompose gold and release the codes in it, and then gold will vanish and cease to exist. I'm pretty sure that's not being permitted yet. So how do we bring knowledge to business owners of how to add to the business network by generating a new market within the existing flow of services and goods for the benefit of the seller and the buyer? And this goes with, again, we're working transformationally, so that whatever we're selling will have a transformational feature to it. Whatever we are buying will lead to some kind of transformation. We are not just selling and buying to earn money. We're selling and buying to change the world. So this is a completely different concept of how to run business. So we're seeding a new business model as a joint project done by all participating, understanding why we do business. And not to earn money alone, but to create products that will evolve our world and humanity, add value to the world and to the consumer or the customer. In essence, only buy if it has a purpose or function, and not because of emotional needs or because we want to buy into a narrative of becoming this or that or whatever, including the progression dynamics and the progression sciences. People will, if they kind of buy some kind of version of my course material, whatever it is, they have a narrative, they have a storyline, they have a kind of an idea of, oh, if I buy this, then I will get that, or if I buy this, then I will become that. But the point of the material is not to make people into something that they are not. It's actually the whole point of the progression science is to make people remember who they are. It's about reconnecting to the original energy system. It's about clearing out everything out that stands in the way of that. So that's mean not to create new illusions of what we can become, but actually to deconstruct all illusions so we understand what we actually are and see things as they truly are. And by that, work with is actually there, and then progress from what is there and what we have available for us, and not try to create an inflated or blown up concept of what we think we are, driven by energetic parasites and distortion energies, but actually work. What is possible? What can I do? What do I have of means that I can work with? And for some of you that say, oh, I want to do my own project, I want to have my own business, and then you begin and then you discover that that's just not who you are. That's just too much hard work. That's not where you don't find it thrilling. The idea of it was thrilling, but the actual work was not. Well, then there are other solutions where you will begin to look at, okay, can I find a network or a community where there are people that I can do the concord with, that I actually can work alongside with without fully being part of their programs and their worlds, but still earn the money I have to pay my bills, so I can get food on the table, so I can have a place to live, so I can have a life that is noble or honorable enough for me to continue my progression work. And here I'm using honorable and noble in a way that the energies are supportive within the original dynamics of our system to continue our progression journey. So that should be the choice that we're doing. Not everybody will go out and be sole business owners. Not all will go out and create a huge business on big scale. Some will still choose to be working with others or being hired by others. But whatever we do and whatever solution we choose, it should be something that creates the best possibilities for us to do the progression work. It is as simple as that. That's kind of what we say the main theme of what we are doing, why we're doing. So with that, we also understand the new processes of change that humanity has to develop a new awareness based upon an interactive reality with new sciences, new concepts of energy and matter, and the awareness of higher order consciousness. From that, changes will follow in the perception field of mind and the psychological faculties, changing what it means to be human. So this is where, when we round up the business ideas, I will continue, of course, within the new or the whole Changemaker project on different forms of businesses within food, or how we can work with food, not just as a business, but also as an individual being, and how that eventually might change into some kind of work, not as a business where we sell things, but some kind of work where we use that medium of food to transform energy, or we use the medium health to do the reconfiguration to align ourselves with the outer domain energies, which is part of the exosystemic energetic awareness forum, and some of the modalities I will come up with there. Or connecting to the environment, where we begin to work, for instance, the 2025 timeline that leads us into the fifth cycle and some of the new sciences that will come there. How do we work with our planet? How do we work with the environment that we're part of as a holographic, energetic, dynamic reality with relative reality dynamics? So that's part of the 2025 timeline. If that falls away, then that will just be what we could say, that's just the opening to the fifth cycle dynamics in whatever version version that will appear and present itself inside our reality, as I talked about. So these are some of the things that we are working towards. We understand we're working out of the progression sciences of the fourth cycle, using the transformative energy system to do so. We are creating a foundation for our livelihood with the whole change maker ideas, where we go in and say, well, this is how I'm taking the principles and the ideas of the progression dynamics and bridge it into the base program. That's what the change maker material is about. And then branch it into either within what we call food, health, and environment, or all three of them, or whatever we choose to do, as these are jurisdictions where we can use the transformative dynamics. These are jurisdictions where it is logical to use the progression sciences and the higher order progression energies and progress that and work with the progressive dynamics of what we call the higher order reality dynamics. Combining these two things together, and then begin to say, okay, then the future is either the 2025 timeline or whatever timeline that we choose to engage with, but at least we will do it on the fifth cycle, higher order energy system level, where it's no longer just about the heart, field, and vibrational energies, but it also goes into the mental energies, the radiation energies, the understanding of holographic energetic dynamics and grids and lineages and original purposes of all universal structures, the sciences that goes with that, the laws of the cycles, the energetic laws of everything that we can engage with, because we learned that the principles are technically part of the foundational level of everything we need to learn. The rules of engagement goes with the entire 2-8 pillar, and the 3-9 pillar goes with the natural laws of energy, where we really learn how to operate in systems using energies as part of our lineage, as part of the system, as part of the progressive dynamics, or the opposite. So all of this ties into the Pillar project as it were originally, and Pillar 410 is, as you recall from the template science, is about reality governance, and Pillar 511 is all about developmental programs, and Pillar 612 is where we enter into the core domain and technically work with what we could say the top level of the constructions that we are existing within. So with that run through again of the course material that I have built upon the new business ideas in different variations and within different contexts, I will here say that the foundational understanding of creational projects as well as businesses have been put in motion by this course material. There can be many different layers added to it. This is just the beginning of a very long process of developing new ways of being human, new ways of working, new ways of doing business, new ways of perceiving projects, new ways of perceiving how we exemplify who we are internally into the external environment, where we transform what we are inner as the inner human, and by that bridge into the outer reality as change makers, where everything we are, what we have engineered ourselves to be, will have an impact on reality and participate in changing the world and tearing down the enslavement programs and build something new where the highest good of the many, or at least the progression dynamics, or some sort of transformation, some sort of actual original LPU dynamics as a minimum will come back in play, and optimally the original progression dynamics under the ancient ones, if we can go so far. If not in this round, well, at least in the next one. So everybody has that understanding foundationally, yes, that what used to be as part of the old world order and everything that went wrong after the timeline event must be put to bed. It must stop. It must end. We must begin something new. Things must change. It is time to take a different stand on how and what it means to be human, and how we are dealing with our reality dynamics, and how we are choosing to produce and to work and to exist and to be amongst others and perceive our reality, and all of these different levels of awareness that must come in play so that we can together change this world, change who we are, change the reality field itself, change the solar system as it was supposed to, and get back on board with the original elevation cycles, the original lineages and their purpose and function, and the original dynamic laws of progression for all races that exist within this universal structure. So with that last piece put in, thank you for listening into this course material. I do hope it has given you some good ideas to how to continue either your journey towards a sole proprietor business, or some sort of creational project, whatever you choose to do, or to just accept that that is not for you, but you will find a community and a network where you can do your progression journey amongst them, work as a role model amongst others that are doing the same thing. We all have something to share, to give, to exemplify, and by that learn to work as a community where our diversity features, our differences, will create a very complex, unified field that is aimed at progression. Not that crises are to be avoided, not that things are unpleasant is something we don't want to look at, but as a team, we work to solve the crisis. As teams, we work to undo the unpleasantness, not to seek pleasure, because we know that can get perverted as well, and we can get addicted to it and then avoid the real work because all we want to have is pleasure. But that we look on things and at things as they truly are, to transform them into their highest purity rates, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate for us, for others, and for reality itself. So we continue the journey we began inside this system a very long time ago. Now in this century, in this era, as change maker, as progressive humans, and as the ones that are ready to do the transition and elevate into the highest version of what we can be biologically, emotionally, mentally, as well as in our 6-layered energy system under the highest purity rates, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate, following the dynamics of the template sciences and the highest level of the correct use of energy and consciousness, because we are seeding it in via our commitment to the lineages and the races we sprung from, but in the overall understanding that the correct commitment is the transformation, the progression, and the elevation of both the lineages, but also the structures and the universal reality fields that we are part of. So this is the largest picture of everything we're doing. So with that one said, well, in the old days, we would say Godspeed, right? But since we are not going up to divinities, what I can wish for you from here on is whatever you embark on, whatever that will come your way, whatever crisis that will come in front of you, that you will be able to transform that. So whatever that will come into your field to be worked with will lead you to the path of the highest purity rate, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate. Thank you.